St. James's Church is a very historic church. It's associated with James Skinner, who was a very interesting man who lived in the late 18th and early part of the 19th centuries. And he was, to us in history, is known as the founder of Skinner's Horse, one of the oldest regiments which is still there in the Indian Army. And James Skinner, who had his own estate very close to this place across this road at Kashmere Gate, he decided to build this church. When Intac started doing research on the history of this church, we looked at old documents, we looked at old letters and prints and things like that, and we discovered all sorts of interesting facts about this church. For instance, its architect was Robert Smith, who was, in those days, most of these buildings were designed by architects who were army engineers. So he was actually an army engineer, Robert Smith, an execution of the church. It is a very interesting building. Another interesting aspect of this church that we discovered was that when we looked at old prints, old paintings of the building, we discovered that the original color of the church was a sort of a pinkish, a salmon pinkish color. And for some reason, later developments, sometime around the last few decades maybe, that yellow color had been put on this church, but the original color was this pinkish color. So when Intac started to discover these new facts, and then of course it had to go through a committee to decide that yes, we will go back to this authentic historical color of the church as well. So these were all, it's part of the conservation project.
My name is A.J.K. Menon. I've been involved with Intac, doing a lot of conservation work with Intac since its inception, 1984. We have done a lot of conservation work, and it has been something that I have been fairly passionate about, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to get this project of doing the conservation of St. James Church. Well, the involvement with St. James Church is many years ago. Almost 25 years ago, we first came to do conservation work here, and that was because the dome was leaking and there are a lot of other structural problems. So what we did was that we undertook conservation work at that time.
चूँकि ये इमारत हेरिटेज है, हेरिटेज की श्रेणी में आती है, तो इसके लिए जो वर्कमैनशिप है वो भी हमको स्पेशल अरेंज करना पड़ती है। और जो मटेरियल होता है, चूने को हम 30 दिन तक सिलेक्ट करते हैं, फिर उसको छानते हैं, फिर यूज करते हैं, फिर उसमें गुड़ बेलगिरी बना के और उसका पेस्ट बनाते हैं एक स्पेशल चक्की में और उसको पूरा अप्लाई करते हैं। तो इसके लिए जो लेबर और कारीगर होते हैं वो विशेष प्रकार के कारीगर होते हैं जो ये काम करते हैं, क्योंकि ये जो अलग तरीके का है। तो इसको जो परफेक्टली करने के लिए हमको काफ़ी मेहनत करना पड़ती है और इसलिए स्पेशल कारीगर बुलाए जाते हैं जो हमारे राजस्थान से या मध्य प्रदेश के कुछ क्षेत्रों से आते हैं और वो इस कार्य को करते हैं। और उसके लिए हम अपना, क्योंकि मैं आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट हूँ, तो मैं भी पूरा सुपरविजन करता हूँ कि कहीं कोई गलती ना हो और ये बिल्डिंग ऐसी सालों तक द्वारा काम में आए। क्योंकि ये इसका बिल्डिंग का सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज ये था कि इस बिल्डिंग को हमको रीयूज करना था। तो इसको हमको रीयूज करने के लिए जो क्लाइंट का फैसिलिटेशन था उसको बढ़ाना था, उनके हिसाब से लाइटिंग, उनके हिसाब से वर्कमैनशिप हमको करना थी। इसमें जो फर्श था उसको भी हमने रिप्लेस किया है और जो मोल्डिंग्स थी वो बहुत बड़ा इसका चैलेंजिंग था, क्योंकि मोल्डिंग्स सारी इसकी टूट चुकी थी। मोल्डिंग्स और जो बैलुस्टर्स थे उनको हमने दोबारा से बनाया। ये है ना, टाइम टेकिंग काम है क्योंकि ये विशेष प्रकार का कार्य होता है तो इसमें टाइम लगता है। एक बार बनाने के बाद फिर 20 दिन इसको हमको क्वेरिंग करना पड़ती है पानी से, फिर उसको निकाल के दोबारा से एक एक चीज को कारीगरी से पूरा जैसा था उसी रूप में बनाना पड़ता है।
Well, it's a very important role that St. James Church Committee, in fact we call this committee the Pastorate Committee or the Management Committee, which runs the affairs of the church. And this committee took on this project. It also formed a subcommittee called the Church Conservation Committee. Well, this project inception, or rather it coming into our heads or into our consciousness, the church collective consciousness, was 2015. In the annual general meeting of the church in 2015, we decided that the church needed very elaborate repairs. The church spent about 5 to 10 lakhs every year in maintaining the church and the church property, but it was felt that the time had come that overall a major work had to be done. I mean, we had a major fund drive assisted by Intech also in this, and we wanted to raise money, and we approached major corporates and other non-governmental organizations, Christian bodies, and then we also approached the Lieutenant Governor, who happens to be the chairman of the chairperson of Delhi Development Authority. We first wrote to the Lieutenant Governor for funding, for providing us funds for this conservation project as per the DPR prepared by Intech.
You know, conserving a building which is a living building is a very different kind of feeling and a challenge already, and especially when the community does not have a lot of funds to actually take a project which is related with conservation. So when we talk about conservation, when we think about conservation, there are so many different kind of challenges. So number one would be how to convince your client, how to convince your funding agency. Why? Because this is not a routine modern work, and the costing and the philosophy does not go with the construction of a modern building. Of course, it is a very emotional situation, especially when you are almost at the end of the project. It is a very emotional situation. The reason being, you have started the project with an idea. You had started a project with a building which was in very bad shape, and you are coming to an end where you are giving back to the community a very beautifully, nicely restored building. Value and emotional situation for a community.
I really hope that the beautiful example that has been set by this conservation of St. James's Church, it will work to bring attention not only to a historic building like this, but to the many historic buildings that are in Kashmiri Gate. So I really hope that St. James's Church sets the example for the city of Delhi, for the Kashmiri Gate area, on how to do good conservation.
Skinner's horse, of course, or rather Colonel Skinner of Skinner's horse, he was the one, he owned this plot of land, and in the mid-1800s, it is so important that the buildings in Delhi, in fact in the whole country, which need conservation, which over time have deteriorated, but have historical value or emotional value, they should be conserved. And St. James's Church was in a very bad way some years ago. So Intech, Delhi chapter of Intech, we decided that we must make efforts to persuade the government and the people, the church people and so on, to try to bring it back to what it was many, many years ago. We succeeded, and the DDA, Delhi, they also became interested and have funded the conservation work apart from some others. It is important, of course, that conservation work should be done on these buildings, restoration, but also that they should get the right technical support or the technical know-how to do these buildings. And so INTAC, the Delhi chapter of INTAC, was asked, and we have been so happy to have done this building. And it is such a pleasure to look back at our efforts and see that the results have been so good that the church authorities are happy, the Delhi government is happy with it.